I personally find that having support from those around you, not only the ones who directly help you, but your competitors, it gives you more of an idea of how far you can reach. I've struggled with mental health since I was very young, like we're talking 4 or 5 years old. But I only really decided to bring it up on an athletics basis originally. It all kind of kickstarted in 2021. My cousin passed away of leukemia. He was only 19 years old. And it set me up kind of on a path of destruction. Athletics just kind of took the back seat of everything, really. And the following year, I decided to make a post. And in September last year, a boy from another country, he approached me and was like, "Oh, I just wanted to say thank you for the post you made. If it wasn't for that, I'm not sure if I would be here today." In the future, no. I mean, there is 100% athletic performance goals. But again, I want to work in the mental health industry within some capacity. There is other things to life. And for me, that is helping people with mental health.
So, Brydon, obviously you've been doing athletics for a fair few years now, and you've told us previously that you've loved the competitive nature of it. You love like competing with your friends, your competitors, and all that sort of stuff. But you also said to us that you really appreciate the sense of community nowadays. Like that's a massive thing for you. So,
Yeah.
how influential would you say the track and field community as a whole is with helping you progress, not just on the track, but off the track as well?
Well, I mean, when I was younger, Jack, I competed at quite a high level for age group athletics anyway. So, and also I was quite new to the sport, so I didn't take it all that seriously, at least training wise anyway. But obviously in competition, that's a different story. But I mean, I didn't know any of my competitors. They had all been doing the sport for at least a year longer than me. So they all kind of had their friendships sorted. That was that. I was kind of just by myself. But throughout the years, you develop relationships over time because I can't say the same for the sprints because it's so cutthroat. But with the throws, it's the same people at each comp. Like South of England, you'll have the ones in the south, obviously, but then obviously nationals, English schools, it's all the same people. Um, yeah, as those relationships develop, you talk more and you become more friendly, and then as a result, the support for each other increases. And I find in particular the throwing community in this country was quite unique. We all supported each other and we were happy for each other's success. So, we obviously we'd be upset if we didn't win, but if our friend for a PB at the comp, we would genuinely be happy for them. It wasn't like bittersweet in your mouth. Um, but I personally find that having support from those around you, um, not only the ones who directly help you, but your competitors, it gives you more of an idea of how far you can reach.
Mm.
When your competitors are kind of supporting and pushing you, you begin to realize the potential that perhaps you wouldn't have seen before because you might think, oh, if it's my coach, of course he's going to say I could, win the nationals or whatever. But when your competitors are saying that, it's like, oh, maybe I can. Um, and the community feel also does give a sense of networking, and the opportunities that can be obtained from that are invaluable. So, you might get trained, you might get offered to train elsewhere in the country, you might get offered to train at high-end facilities. So, you might get to train at Loughborough or Brunel or other places like that. And then for me, I've been quite lucky in that I've networked with competitors from around the world, and I've got to train in places like Sweden as a result of it.
So, talking about Sweden, then, could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was either a few weeks ago or a few months ago that you trained out there. So, how did that come about?
Um, I was lucky in that I managed to, through messaging, get in contact with Simon Pettersson. He's a discus thrower from Sweden. He won the silver medal at the Tokyo Olympics. And we exchanged a few messages. I actually did an interview with him with my coach, just kind of questioning him about what's life like as an athlete. And then he invited me to come out and train in Sweden. So I did a bit of fundraising, raised a bit of money myself, and I was able to fund the trip. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, I trained with Henrik Wenberg and Lars Gustafsson, two of the national Swedish coaches. Lars had a few athletes at the under 18 Europeans, and his daughter also is going to the Olympics this year. So we'll be able to see her there. And Henrik trains the discus with Simon. along with a few of the other throwers. Um, I mean, the one thing I took from Sweden was just the infrastructure was unbelievable. I mean, I read something on the England Athletics newsletter that there are four permanent 200-meter indoor tracks in the whole of the UK. And in Sweden, there were two within a 30-minute drive of each other. And
Wow.
that's just what I saw. So I mean, for me, I live on the southeast coast. The nearest one to me is Lee Valley, so that's a 2.5, 3 hour drive almost. Um, but I trained in Uppsala, so it's actually a university town, but the club itself, that's the thing. The tracks and that are owned by the club. So this indoor track belonged to a club. It wasn't like a public facility. It belonged to the club.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't just an indoor track. They also had a separate 100 meters straight, gyms, hockey pitches, climbing walls. Um, they had indoor throwing areas, and there'd be 3 or 4 discus and hammer circles, but there'd also be a shopper area inside that was like an outdoor one. So it would have all the gravel, so you could use the proper shots all year, so you didn't have to use the plastic ones. Um, I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, the club I was with in Uppsala, it's home to Summer Pettersson, but also a more commonly known athlete, Mondo Duplantis.
Mm.
So all of his Mondo Classic equipment was there. There were pictures of him everywhere. He was actually there a couple of days after I left, which kind of sucked. I didn't get to meet him. But yeah, and I was lucky enough in that whilst I was in Sweden, I was entered into the opening competition for the Sollentuna World Continental Tour. So that's one of the Diamond League sort of meetings. So I got to enter. I was entered into the opening comp because obviously I didn't want to compete with Daniel Stahl. Um, but I got to meet some of the greats. So I did get to meet Daniel Stahl. I did get to meet Christian Che. I got to meet their coaches. You establish relationships with these people, and it's just good to know in the future because obviously you hope one day that you might get to, train with these people, and you can't do that unless you know them and can talk to them.
Absolutely. So when you meet people like Daniel Stahl then or Simon Pettersson or whoever it is, how does that inspire you with your training? Have you learned any lessons from any of these guys? Have any of them helped you in any way, would you say?
I mean, the person who I've actually learnt the most from is probably Zane Weir, and that was just an interview. But I mean, me and Zane are quite good friends, so we'll talk regularly. But just the things you say to someone can really, depending on how you take it, it can be really beneficial to someone. Particularly with Sweden, for example, just seeing the way these guys train, seeing the way they conduct themselves, it's not abnormal. Like I think people in their head have this idea of athletes being superhuman. They're not. They just work hard. It's and it does give you the sense of I can do that,
Yes.
as opposed to looking at someone like Usain Bolt and thinking, what's how by being there, you actually have the answers to how. It's hard work, eating the right food, just training well. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anyone that gets to train with people of that level and that expertise, like it is going to be an experience in itself because they obviously take it so seriously. It is their lives, pretty much, you know. So, yeah, the fact that you were able to go out to Sweden, I know you've got a few more opportunities lined up further down the line as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine that makes all the difference. So the fact that you were able to get all of this in the pipeline is incredible in itself. So that's awesome.
I mean, the key thing for me as well is that I'm not an athlete of the typical caliber who would be able to perform at these things. I mean, you would typically expect someone throwing upwards of 60 meters to kind of be invited to these things, and I'm nowhere near that. So it does give you an even greater sense of appreciation because, as much as, you do feel like you've earned your way there one way or the other because, you've established that connection. You've given them a good impression of yourself. You've conducted yourself well, and I've been invited back. So clearly, I've done something right along the way.
Yeah, which, as you say, it's a good sign that you're on the right track essentially. So yeah, it's all good progress. Um, and I know that one of the reasons, well, obviously the track and field community does mean a lot to you. And I know in the past you've been really open about your autism and your ADHD as well. So I mean, and obviously with things like autism, it's such a massive spectrum, and
Yeah.
like everyone has different. Well, those people that are on the spectrum anyway, everyone has different ways of like experiencing it and dealing with it.
Yeah.
But what would you say from your experience as someone with autism and ADHD? How do those two conditions actually benefit your athletics, and how does it affect your competitions and training? Would you say?
I mean, it's a difficult question to say because often when you have autism ADHD, you don't really notice the kind of quirks that are associated with it yourself. But it's also what works for me won't work for anyone else. Just like you say, everyone is different. Quite literally, it affects us all differently. Um, for me, if it's done anything, having autism has taught me a sense of resilience. Um, I mean, nowadays I feel like I can kind of enter a room and not everyone kind of can tell, but when I was younger, it was very obvious. Life doesn't always make sense, and the world can be cruel at times. I learned that at quite a young age. Um, but depending on how you choose to take that information is and use it, is kind of what makes the difference. So for me, I use the skills that I've learned in life of, being bullied for being autistic and not understanding the simplest of tasks at times. That gets you down. So I learned to not let the poor performances get me down. And even now, I mean, we're talking now, this is my second season where everything's kind of just not been going my way. Um, if anything, right now, about to head to university, about to change training group, I feel better than ever, despite the performances being the worst they've ever been. Because I mean, I was at quite a high level a few years ago. I won the British Championships. I was ranked top 5 in the country. I was in quite a good position, whereas now I'm not even close to that. But it doesn't mean that I don't think I ever will be. Um, and ADHD itself also comes with its challenges. I mean, in a nutshell, you're distracted. That's the simplest way you can put it. And it just means that it requires you to be much more disciplined than your peers to perform the exact same tasks. Um, which is tedious. It's because you're just thinking, oh, I'm just doing a drill. Why is it so hard for me just to sit here and do this drill without wandering off and talking to someone or something like that? However, now being used to what that kind of work takes and also just becoming better with it over time as I get older, I now believe I can do just as much, if not more, than the next person. Because if particularly when I was younger, I could get on with it, I can get on with it now with much more ease. And it just means that I've got the self discipline to do more stuff, not just in athletics, but in life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to ask you that question is because I think when people think of things like autism and ADHD, they often have negative connotations towards it, as opposed to say the positive things that actually come with having autism or ADHD. So, it's always good to hear actually how it can benefit someone as opposed to, what people often think can actually be quite negative towards how someone like thinks about something or how they approach something. So, I mean, because obviously, like, anxiety can come into it, nerves can come into it. But yeah, as you say, like, you can obviously take what you have and then actually use that as a way to, how do I put it? As basically as a way for you to better yourself in a
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I've done this year is because I feel like when I was younger, I always kind of ignored the fact that the autism was there. I think I was so desperate to kind of blend in. I just didn't really want to acknowledge it, which is quite common. It's not an unreasonable thing for an autistic person to do if they're able to do it. Um, but every year I look back at old videos or photos. I mean, I think, God, I can tell I was different then,
Mhm.
and it makes me appreciate how much further I've come. But the one thing I've done this year is I've taken time to kind of step back and learn about myself. I've read books about it. I've watched documentaries. I've taken an interest in what I do. I note down what I'm feeling in certain situations, and rather as opposed to hiding it, I've embraced it in the sense that not every autistic person is that guy who screams and has a tantrum and can't deal with flashing lights. Like, if you said to me 5 years ago I'd be going into nightclubs, I'd be thinking, God, what's wrong with you? Help me. Whereas now I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, you once you learn, you can start developing the way you work, learn that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, some days your body just doesn't. Some days you might come to a competition, your body just doesn't feel right. You're not feeling up to it. You don't know how to fix it. It doesn't matter what energy supplements you take. It doesn't matter how you prepare your body. You just don't feel right. And when I was younger, I used to stress out. I'd almost have like not a panic attack, but I'd start panicking. I'd start stressing, and I just wouldn't be able to think. Whereas now I'm just like, right, just because I don't feel it doesn't mean that I can't do well. Just because I feel a bit sluggish doesn't mean I'm going to lose. It doesn't. It, you learn to block that stuff out. You just have to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because if you're going to fester and if you're going to, like keep thinking, oh, what if I would have done this differently? What if I would have done that differently? It's not necessary. Well, it's not gonna, it's not gonna get you anywhere ultimately. Like you have to have that positivity towards it. A lot of it is the mental attitude towards it, which I think a lot of people sometimes forget. Obviously, like you've got the physicality towards it, but the mentality, having a strong, positive mentality in order for you to compete and train, that is such a key component to obviously like improving day by day basically. So yeah, part of the reason that I wanted to ask you about your autism and ADHD as well is because it kind of links into the topic of mental health awareness essentially as well, which I know is a massive thing for you because you've had quite a journey with your own mental health, which again you've also been very open about. And it's up to you how much you want to tell me. It's entirely your call. But could you, if possible, tell me the reasons for you opening up about your journey with others? What started that decision for you to be so open about it?
I've struggled with mental health since I was very young. Like we're talking 4 or 5 years old. Um, but I only really decided to bring it up on an athletics basis originally. It all kind of kickstarted in 2021. I won the British Championships on, I believe, the 8th of August, 2021. Unfortunately, the day before, my cousin passed away of leukemia. He was only 19 years old. So, I've already outlived him now. Um, and it didn't really hit me on the day, obviously, because, that kind of thing doesn't. But when I won the British champ the next day, as much as I smiled, as much as I was happy, I was never really that fussed because I was like, oh, my cousin's died. Um, and it kind of, looking back, I probably should have spoken to someone about it, but I thought it was fine. I didn't really bothered about it. And it set me up kind of on a path of destruction. Probably the best way to put it. Just started doing a lot of things I probably shouldn't have been doing. Uh, and just, I kind of didn't really see the point in living for quite a long time. And I didn't really train much that winter. I really wasn't fussed. I put on a lot of weight. Athletics just kind of took the back seat of everything, really. And I came back the following season. I just wasn't performing at all. At all. So I decided about halfway, just after English schools, I was just going to withdraw from the season. Um, just And I knew people would be asking questions because I was quite, I wouldn't say prominent, but I was a fairly well-known figure. Uh, Certainly in the age group anyway. So I just made a post explaining the situation. I said, not been feeling great, etc., etc. I'd also been through quite a nasty breakup not too long before, so I was in a pretty foul mood anyway. Um, and I didn't go into much detail. I didn't really discuss mental health that much in the post. I think it was a first that had been pushed in a sort of way. And, we're talking 1,500 likes. It wasn't like the post went viral, but it went around particularly the British athletics community. And, it started getting shared by the likes of Athletics Weekly and other different sports clubs and whatnot. And the following year, I decided to make a post, and it only took me 20 minutes to write. It took me 20 minutes to edit. We're not talking a lot of time here, not too much thought. I just thought it'll be a good thing to do a year after the original one. And whilst it did the same numbers wise, it reached a much larger audience. I mean, I remember reading the analytics for the post, and it reached over 20,000 people. Um, and again, it was only a 20-minute discussion by me, kind of in a bit more of a mental health basis. But what kind of changed my view on the whole thing was in September last year. A boy from another country at the club under 20 championships in Italy. He approached me and was like, "Oh, I just wanted to say," he came up to me and was like, "Oh, sorry, you Brydon Duncan?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me. Can I help you?" And he was like, "Oh, no, I just wanted to say thank you for the post you made. If it wasn't for that, I'm not sure if I would be here today." And I was like, that thing took me 20 minutes to write. Like, it really wasn't a big thing for me at all. I mean, everyone says to you, "You're so brave." To me, it was just writing something. There was no hesitation behind it. I wasn't really fussed. If I got a bunch of hate for it, I got a bunch of hate for it. If I got support, I got support. That wasn't what it was about. I just thought it'd be a good thing to do. But after that discussion, and he wasn't the only one to approach me. I mean, I still have people now approaching me at competitions to say thank you, but that one has always stuck with me because of kind of the severity of what was said. And it made me think, if a 20-minute writing session potentially saved someone's life, imagine what I could do if I actually put some time and thought into it. And I'm not saying that I've got a gift or anything like that, but I'm in a position where I feel like I can talk about it, and a lot of people haven't got that. It's not they just don't feel like they can. They're not comfortable with that, and that's fine. But I'm in a position where I do feel comfortable, and I would feel terrible if I could have made a difference with it and chose not to.
Yeah, of course. Like people can be really good at hiding the mental health issues they have, and like it's often the ones that are the most outgoing and that actually show that they're happy, which a lot of the time they actually seem to be the people that are having like inner
The
demons.
most issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, the thing for me was that, I mean, someone approached me once and was like, "How do you hide it so well?" Because this is after I came out about me being all upset. And I just said to him, I mean, this was kind of a link with the autism. This kind of links back to it. When you're autistic, particularly the way I was desperate to fit in. I wanted friends because I didn't have any. Um, and so you learn to mask all your quirks. You have to, otherwise society won't accept you. That's just it, because you're always labeled as autistic. So when it comes to then masking emotions, that's like page one of the book. You think, like, when you have to basically be a completely different person for people, hiding the fact that you're sad really isn't a big deal. It's quite easy, actually. Um, and I'm, like many people say, again, this kind of is a bit out of the norm for an autistic person, but I'm very sociable. I'm outgoing. But at the same time, when I was miserable, I was probably more outgoing than ever, trying to meet up with more because I was just so miserable. I just couldn't bear the thought of being alone. It was just a horrendous thought to me at the time. So it's like, yeah, you learn to mask very well, particularly when you're the one who's in the most pain.
Absolutely. So when you receive support from people, because as you said, the post that you did, like it did get a reaction of some sort, especially within the British athletics community, as you said yourself. So what has it been like for you to receive this support from your friends, fellow athletes, in regards to your mental health journey? How has that been for you?
And of course, it's been fantastic. And of course, people then start listening to you and they kind of start giving you sympathy. But that was never what it was about. It was never a case of my story's the worst, I want all the support. It was never about that. It was just about the fact that I don't care whether you're a really soft, delicate person or you're the hardest person going. I guarantee you, I was probably just as hard or I was probably just as firm, and it still affects me. It will still affect your friend. I mean, I'm pretty sure I read a stat somewhere that 3 out of 10 people will be affected by mental health in quite a significant way at some point in their life. So you've got to think about it. That's a third of the room. So in a class, that's 10 of you. Um, and it's just not being oblivious to the fact. It's not. We can't all fix everything. We're not superheroes, but by just supporting, talking about it, I think is the main step you can take. Um, because that seems to be the biggest issue. It's just starting the process of getting help as opposed to actually following the help.
Yeah. So if someone, okay, theoretically, let's just say someone was to come up to you,
Yeah.
like a fellow athlete, and they told you how they were really struggling in one way or another because of their mental health, and they really wanted to, improve on like their abilities because of it. What pieces, I guess, what are the main pieces of advice from your experience, especially, would you give to fellow athletes who are or who have been in a similar position to you?
I mean, the first thing I would say is that 9 times out of 10, when athletes or anyone approaches you regarding their mental health, they just want someone to talk to. That's the most important bit. Um, but if they're really insistent on my advice, the thing I'd probably say is don't, particularly for an athlete, and I learned this from a friend of mine, don't make it all about athletics. You must learn to about yourself and how to develop yourself as a person outside of it if you truly want to aid your capabilities. Because as much as the titles and accomplishments mean to you, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love winning the British title. I love having a good. It's great, but it's not enough. It doesn't make you happy. It might make you happy short term, but it's not what fulfills your personal goals. And as much as it might mean everything to you, but it doesn't mean it's enough. And whether it be learning about something or finding interesting books to read or just other hobbies, cooking, anything, you have to develop yourself and learn about how you work, why you work that way, and why you want to change it. Um, and as much as I talk about the camaraderie of the sport, like I did earlier, there's no denying that it is also probably one of, if not the most isolating sport in the world, because it's sheer performance. That's all athletics is. It's about the human body going to the peak of what it can do. Um, and during those moments, it can be very. I mean, it can be daunting at times to even step foot in the track or in the circle. But particularly when you're going through a slump, it can be absolutely terrifying because you know in your head that you're not going to perform well, and that is the worst thing that can possibly happen to you. So it's important to have quite a large amount of substance to yourself outside of that. Um, I mean, for me, I found that my interests and passions are focused on mental health, but you just need to have something about you that's not, because at the end of the day as well, athletics will end one day. You can't put all your eggs in one basket because one day that career will finish. And then what if you haven't developed yourself outside of that? You're lost. You don't know what to do. And you see it often with footballers. They leave the sport and they don't know what to do. They have as much money as they could ever need, but they just don't know what to do with themselves. And it doesn't mean that and by when I say, you've got to not put your eggs in one basket, that doesn't mean you can't be at the top of your performance. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Zane Weir is one who I've learnt this from. I mean, he's a European champion. Like, he's got stuff to show for it, but you know, he'll often tell me, you just can't focus on one thing because it doesn't always make you happy. Eventually, the medals, they won't mean anything to you. There are other things in life that will eventually become more important, whether that be family or friends or anything like that. And that doesn't mean you can't be disappointed. You can still be really upset that something hasn't gone your way, and you can still be a little bit depressed about it. That's human nature. People are like that, but it's important not to get too caught up in it, and then that becomes your entire life, and then you're stuck.
And so, very finally, then, Brydon, before I let you go, um, I know you said that you've not been. I know you said this past year hasn't necessarily gone how you would have liked it to have gone in certain aspects with your
Yeah.
throwing and your athletics. But if we put that aside for a minute, when you look back on like the past few years and the other competitions you've done prior to that, what moments in your career so far do you look back on that fill you with pride, would you say? And yeah, just what moments stand out for you in that sense?
I mean, athletically, obviously, I would look at the British Championships win. Um, Obviously, like I discussed earlier, my cousin passed away the day before, so that obviously put you in quite a fragile mindset anyway. But what a lot of people don't realize is that 2 weeks before was the English schools, and I had the winning throw. It was called wide. We tried disputing it, but it wasn't allowed. Um, and I didn't really know how it all worked. Again, it was my first ever proper national competition, so I didn't know how the rules worked. I didn't know that you could really properly dispute something. And after the competition, the field ref looked at the video and he acknowledged the mistake that had been made, but at that point it was too late. So I missed a UK number one ranking at the time, an England vest for the Syabs, um, another England vest for the Throws Fest, and obviously an English schools medal. Um, so to come back 2 weeks later, back to Manchester and win that championship in the rain, because I mean the weather was terrible, it really did mean something to me because it felt like I got that redemption for the injustice that I felt had been done 2 weeks before. And as silly as it sounds, that meant a lot to me, particularly being only 16 years old. Um, but in terms of my proudest accomplishments, uh, going to Sweden was a big one because, like I said earlier, I'm not the kind of person that would typically be invited for that. And I felt proud of the fact that I'd been able to get that opportunity and I used it to my full advantage. I mean, there are plenty of people around me just saying to me, don't go, it's not worth your time, you're not going to learn anything from it. It wouldn't apply to you, they're too good. And it's thought, no, I'm going to do it and I'm going to make myself proud. Um, and, the work I do in mental health is the proudest thing of all. I mean, like I said, at first it was just saying a few words on paper. Now it's like I actually give a bit of thought to it, and the fact that I'm seeing that there's beneficiary results as a result of it. Um, I mean, I will never forget that lad who came up to me in Italy because even though it was only one, again, he could have just said that to make me feel better, but that really did hit a spot. Think to myself, thinking that I wish I had had that available when I was in a really bad place. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you're doing the public speaking with your mental health awareness as well. So, I mean, it's obvious that that's something that you're really passionate about, and you've already made a difference to God knows how many, there could be a whole load of other people that you've really helped out without even realizing it as well.
And I've said this quote before, and I will forever use it. I can't change the world, but it doesn't mean I can't try. Again, I don't do it for the praise, but it's more being able to acknowledge that it is helping, like it
Yeah,
is positive. Yeah,
absolutely. So, yeah, just, one final question. Would you
go.
say that in terms of your future goals, then, would you say it's not necessarily your performances that you want to improve on? Would you say it's more actually improving the quality of life, not improving the quality of life, but just, like helping people with their mental health for people that are involved in track and field, whether it's athletes, coaches, officials? Like, what are your future goals in that sense, would you say?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I think people have kind of written me off because my performances have been so poor in the last couple of years. But I mean, I've got my reasons for that. Um, in the future, no. I mean, there is 100% athletic performance goals. I mean, whether that be Olympic level in the future, perhaps Commonwealth level, even if I was just national level, there's a level I want to achieve the highest level I can. Like whether that be Olympic level or national level, I just want to get there. But again, I want to work in the mental health industry, within some capacity, whether that be doing speaking or I teach other people about it or anything along the lines. I mean, the beauty of what I've been doing for Neuff this year is that it's given me an opportunity to use a platform in some sense of the word. Um, it's encouraged me to start making videos again because I mean, of course, like a lot of kids, I made YouTube videos when I was younger. But it's given me the opportunity to start making it in a more creative sense and looking at different subjects that I've got passions for. But it's certainly kickstarted something which I hope which will reach a larger scale in the future because it is something that does apply to everyone. So certainly, I mean, I'm starting at Brunel in September, so I'll be with Gary Power, who's one of the England athletics coaches. I've also got support from who I believe is one of the best coaches in the country, and Alex Pope. I mean, the man is a genius. Um, so I've got a good support team around me, and I'm also lucky in that I know people like Zane Weir who I can get advice from, people again like Alex who will support me in whatever endeavor that may be. So it's not Alex understands himself, it's not just athletics. There is other things to life, and for me, that is helping people with mental health. And I just want to achieve the absolute maximum I can in both of those fields. Um, because I believe they are two things that kind of do go hand in hand. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, obviously, that your athletics goes as you hope it will in the next few years or so. And yeah, best of luck to you, and thank you for talking to
thank
me.
you very much. Thank you very much again.